Today let's talk about one of the most important command in Linux, which is cp command. Cp stands for copy, and the function of this command is to copy one file from one location and move to another location. Today let's see how does it work and what is the syntax of the cp command and how can we modify the behavior of the cp command using some special options. So first let's see the syntax of this command. So the syntax of this command is cp, and you can mention some options to modify the behavior of this cp command. Then you have to mention the file or the directory that you want to copy. So that will be source. Sorry, just give me a minute. Yep. So that will be source. And you also have to mention the destination to which you want to copy these source files to. So that will be your destination. Alright, so now that this is clear, let's go ahead and try to do some stuff with this cp command. First, I will clear out my terminal so that I can go ahead and start the implementation. So the first thing that you have to know is that unlike mv command, which stands for move, cp command doesn't delete the original file after copying it. So let's see this in a little while, but let's first do some simple task with the cp command and understand the functionality of this. So let's say that I am in the folder cybersecurity, and if I hit ls, you can see that I have some files here. All right, so I'll take one file and try to apply cp command on it and try to mention another file and see let's see what happens. So I'll write cp and I'll write hacking.md, and I want to copy this file and rename the new file as hackings.md. Let's see what happens. So nothing happened, and let's hit ls, and you can see that if I hit ls, there's a new file called hackings.md, but the original file was not deleted. So let's try to go into the original file and see the contents of those original file. So I'll write hacking.md and let's see what happens. I have some text inside this file. So let's quit and let's go to the new file, which is hackings.md, and let's hit enter. If you see, you have the same text inside the new file too, but the original file was not deleted. So that was what I was telling you. So let's go back and let's clear the terminal and let's talk about something else now. Now you know the functionality of cp. So you copy a file and if you mention another file, the contents of the original file will be sent to the new file, but this file will not be touched or deleted. Now that this is clear, let's move to another functionality that you can do with cp command. Let's say that I don't want to copy the contents of the file into another file. Now let's copy the file itself into another folder. So if I hit ls, you can see that I have two folders here, blue team and red team. Let's move hacking.md into the folder called red team, and let's see what happens. So if I hit ls, you can see that the original file was not affected. The file is still here, but if I go to red team directory and try to hit ls, there's also a new file in this directory called hacking.md, and if I go into that file and see the contents of the file, you also have text inside this file. So if you hit if you want to move a file to any directory, the original file will not get affected, and also the file will get copied into the new directory that you specify. Let's go back and do another exercise. Let's clear the terminal first and let's hit ls again. You know that I already have two folders called blue team and red team. Previously, I did copy one file into the red team folder. Now let's try to copy multiple files into the red team folder. So first I'll try to copy hackings.md. Then I also want unethical.md, and I also want ethicalhacking.md into the folder red team. So let's write the path and hit enter. Now let's ls again on the cybersecurity folder. You can see that my files are not touched, means they are not deleted. And let's clear the terminal and move to red team, and let's try to hit ls again. So if you see, I have all the files that I mentioned inside this red team folder. So this is another thing that you can do with cp command, which is you can copy multiple files into a single directory. Now let's move to the next functionality. Let's go back to the cybersecurity folder. Let's clear the terminal and let's hit ls. If you can see, I have the two same folders here. Let's copy the entire folder red team, which also has some more subfolders and files inside it, which are blue team, ethical hacking folder, risks, vulnerability, pen testing, and some other files. So let's copy all of these files and the entire red team folder into a folder called blue team. So let's go back and let's hit ls again. If you see, I have a blue team here. So I'll clear the terminal. Now I'll write cp. I'll mention an option which is R. So what does this mean? R stands for recursive. So what does this do is that, so any directory that you mention here, all the files and subfolders that are inside this folder will be copied to the destination. So I have multiple files and multiple directories inside the directory red team. All of that content will be copied to a new directory. And I want to copy this into a directory called blue team, and let's hit enter. Let's hit ls and see my original file red team was not touched. And let's go to blue team and let's hit ls. If you see, I have a folder called red team inside blue team. Now let's go into that red team folder and hit ls. All of that original content was copied into this folder. So if you ever want to copy a folder which has subfolders and files in it, just use the command R, which stands for recursive. Now let's clear the terminal again. So if I hit ls, so let's try to copy the contents of the file which is pentesting.txt into a file which is hacking.md. And let's see what happens, because we already have a file by the name pentesting.txt. So let's write cp, and this time I'll include an option called I. So first let's write down the entire command and see what happens. So I'll write, I want to copy the contents of the file pentesting.txt into a file called hacking.md. All right. You know that I already have a file called hacking.md in this location. So what this option does is it interactively shows me that you already have a file at this location. Do you want to overwrite the file? So let's hit enter, and it says that, do you want to overwrite the hacking.md content with pentesting.txt content? If I hit yes, and if I go into pentesting.txt and see the content and go back, and if I open hacking.md and see the content, you can see that the content which was in the file pentesting.txt was returned to the file hacking.md. So what if you don't write the command I? Let's perform the same thing again. All right, so let's write cp pentesting.txt and hacking.md. If you see, it did not ask my permission to overwrite the file. So if you want to get prompted if you're overwriting a file, then use I. It is a best practice to use I whenever you're working on a secure systems, because you'll get prompted if there's already another file with that name, and so that you don't mess up the system. There's also one more option, F, which will force copy without telling you that it is overwriting the file, which basically is same as cp this command. So even if you write F or not, it doesn't matter. It's same, but there's still an option called F, which stands for force, which does the same thing. So let's again clear the terminal and move to the next option. Let's do something new now. Let's hit ls and I'll do the same thing. I want to copy the content of pentesting.txt into hacking.md, but I want the shell to skip if there's already a file with that name. So you can use an option called n. What it will do that if I write pentesting.txt and I want to copy the contents of pentesting.txt into a file called hacking.md, and let's see what happens. I already have a file hacking.md in this folder, and I have included an option called n. Now it will skip this process because there's already a file with that name. So let's hit enter. It tells me that this command may not work same on other shells or on other Linux distributions. So you can also use update is equals to none instead, but it's fine. If you're on Ubuntu, this should work fine. Now so the contents of this file did not get copied into hacking.md because there's already a file with this name. Now let's go and talk about a newer option, but first let's try to clear the terminal. Now let's talk about a command called verbose, which is indicated with V. So if you want to know what's happening behind the scenes when you're copying a directory or files, you can use V. For example, if I want to copy the folder blue team into red team, I'll write cp and I'll include the option V. I'll write source, which is my blue team, and I'll write, I also have to include the option R because I'm copying the entire folder, and I'll write with my destination, which is red team, and hit enter. And if you see, it shows me what's happening behind the scenes. So first this is being copied, then hacking.md, hackings.md, and so on. So it will show you what's happening behind the scenes if you use the option verbose. So let's clear the terminal, and there's one more special option, which is A. So A is popularly used in corporations because it will not just copy the content, but will also copy the permissions, owner rights, timestamps, and everything. So let's say that you're working in an organization where you also want to copy the permissions and the links, timestamps, and everything. So for that, you can do cp and include the option A, which not only copies the content but also copies the permissions, as I said. So you can just write the source file and the destination file, and it will also copy the permissions. It is simple as that. So this was all about cp command from my side. If I missed anything, do let me know in the comments. I love your feedback. I want to improve the content in my videos. So if you drop comments on how I can improve, I'll definitely take your feedback positively. Apart from that, if you enjoyed this video, if you learned something new, subscribe to my channel, click the bell icon, and I'll drop a new video very soon. Thank you.